All right, guys. You might have thought things like the Yaesu FTDX 10 behind me and in the corner of my screen there was the hot new topic of the day. Well, you're wrong. Guys, this is the sexy new topic for the day. We're talking about PowerPoles, this time on K6UDA Radio. Let's do this. You know, guys, I just realized something. It's been 7 years. 7. Damn. Since I started this channel. This was just about the time that I retired from full-time law enforcement. And I was kind of looking for something to do, something to occupy my time. And yeah. And what brings me back to PowerPoles today is the fact that one of my early on videos, the most hated man in ham radio, you know, I had a whole different format back then. I was trying out different things and I kept thinking, you know, like a 3 or 4 part show that would be a once a week half-hour show. I really didn't know what I was doing, didn't know where it was going to go. Anyway, the most hated man in ham radio, probably my second highest viewed video at close to 200,000 views. Anyway, I did at that point feature a little section on Anderson PowerPoles. How you make them up, what they're used for, all that good stuff. It kind of seems like the whole Anderson PowerPole debate just kind of got thrown by the wayside. The other part of the video, very, very funny. I invite you, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. This is kind of an important thing to talk about, is what brings your power to your ham radio and to all the little ham radio peripherals that you got going on in your shack. But before we begin, guys, I want to ask you, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, the bell notification right below it, or right next to it. That would greatly help me out. Guys, if you are a first responder, retired first responder, and you got a patch you want to share with me for the heroes on the wall. There's the place you could send it to, right there. P.O. Box 961, Twin Falls, Idaho. If you've got something you want to say to me, a little more personal than a comment, there's the email address, k6udaradio@gmail.com. Hope to see you over there. Guys, I also want to remind you that I have a Rumble channel, and I do kind of more of a 2A kind of a show on Rumble. I don't really bring it here. It is there. Please go watch this show on Rumble because it'll be there too. All right. So what are we looking at back here? What are we looking at the back of? This is my Elecraft KXPA100. This is an amplifier with a built-in tuner. And as you could see, even 10 years ago, Elecraft was forward-thinking in their application of power resources. The Elecraft K3 that I've got out in Studio B both make heavy use of PowerPole technology, Anderson PowerPoles. All right, so first of all, why PowerPoles? Why not just use the 4-pin or 2-pin connectors that come on ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood radios like normal people? Much like in law enforcement, military, and everything, we kind of want a standardization. And in the Aries and Races world, if you're into emergency communications, if you're just getting into the hobby, there is a thing called emergency communications. And there's organizations, Aries and Races, which are ham-driven agencies or quasi-agencies that get together and drill and practice and deploy in times of emergency. So in an emergency, you may need to bring that IC705 out in the field to plug that baby in and use it for an extended period of time. You might need that little round pin at the end. So if you're operating under those emergency conditions and maybe AC power isn't available to let you charge that radio up or charge those batteries up, you can use a pin like this to go into that connector on the side of the radio. You can then plug in the PowerPoles and you can charge off of, say, something like this into a cigarette lighter adapter, or something like this that you could go from PowerPole to straight off a battery lug. The whole idea behind that is interoperability, is getting things deployed quickly, put together quickly, disassembled quickly, and being able to put the most kinds of equipment all together and have them work together. Whether I bring an ICOM, a Yaesu, an Elecraft to the event, and we need to hook that up to, say, your power supply or your amp or something else. Makes everything work much, much easier. So, what are PowerPoles? How do they work? How do we put them together? This is a red end of a PowerPole connector. Inside, you could see there's this little spring. And this is the business end of the PowerPole connector. This is what crimps on or solders on and then gets inserted into those little connector housings. Now, there's two ways that you could put these things together. You could do it the old school way and you could solder it, or you can crimp them. I hate soldering. And so I got a pair of these West Mountain radio crimpers, PowerPole crimpers. These are very specific for PowerPoles. There's several brands. I kind of recommend buy once, cry once. And then you've got the best. I buy good tools to do the job. All right, so these have specific crimps for 15, 30, and 45 amp PowerPole connectors. All right, getting back to the project at hand, I'm going to show you exactly how I make up a set of PowerPoles on a piece of wire. Anyway, I am pre-clamping the PowerPole connector tool. All right, next, I'm going to insert the wire that I'm using into the PowerPole connector that I want to make. Then you're going to drop that whole little assembly face down into the appropriate vise. Then we're just going to squeeze the pliers and make a nice even crimp. And when you're done, just pull it out nice and tight. I think this is as good or better than any solder job you're going to do. So now we have to put the PowerPole connector into the PowerPole connector housing. Super easy, my friends. What you want to do is that downward side of the connector is going to face down and insert straight into the PowerPole housing, just like that, and you're going to push it in. At some point, you're going to feel a very positive click. Once you feel that click, that thing is in there and it's not coming out unless you pry it out with a small screwdriver. Now on all the power pole connector housings, you're going to notice these little raised indentations, and then on other sides, indents. And these things go together. You can put them together in a whole bunch of different ways, up and down, side to side, on either side. It does matter. You want these to face both down and side by side, but what you actually want is to slide that in into that indentation. So the red side is on the right and the black side is on the left. That way they're going to fit together universally, unlike this example. So when these things are assembled correctly, that red edge will always be to your right as you're facing away. That way, they're always going to fit into other things that are made up to that Aries Races standard for ham radio. Now, in non-emergency events, it's the same principle. Say we're going to go do a POTA activation, and we're going to go to some state park, and we're going to operate. And I'm bringing a radio. Maybe you're bringing a radio. You're bringing a power supply, and maybe we're bringing some other tools like power meters here that'll calculate the draw and the amperage, the wattage, everything that's going into it. Hey, again, all hooked up, power poles on both ends. Maybe we're going to operate off of an AC to DC converter, like a PowerWorks switching power supply, possibly even a big Astron linear power supply. And we'll get into power supplies on another episode. But hey, being able to take everybody's pieces and parts and put them together, make a quick little system so we can operate our POTA or our SOTA activations. Maybe we're all going on a big camping trip and we're just going to operate and have a good time, and you want to mix and match equipment. Well, using power poles as a standard makes it much easier to put all that equipment together, because I wanted to take that Yaesu 4 connector prong that goes into the back of most of their HF radios, and I wanted to be able to plug in to my power pole connectors. Here's what I did. I actually bought this one. It wasn't bad. It was like $10-12. This has the 4-pin connector that Yaesu likes in the back of their radios. It has 2 power wires, 2 ground wires, and that goes into one set of power poles. And then that set of power poles plugs into a little power pole fuse block. And I can run several things here in Studio A. So what have I got running in Studio A that I need all these power pole connectors for? Well, I have I've got my MFJ switching power supply here that's bringing in everything from the plug in the wall side. It comes out to that power pole fuse block. It's powering 2 radios. It'll power the FTM 400 over here, the FTDX 10 here. It also powers that output meter that's up there, and my cool little K6 UDA on the air light over there. Well, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Hope maybe this shed a little bit of light on the whole power management thing you got going on in ham radio. Maybe it'll make your shack a little bit more organized. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Anyway, if you like this video, give it the big thumbs up. Share it, because, Lord knows YouTube doesn't, and it'll really help me out. Do a brother solid. Anyway, my friends, I'm Bob, K6UDA. That's all I got, and I'm out of here. 7-3.